Hello everyone, I'm Adriana and welcome to Wildlife Photography. As you can see, I'm outdoors today. It is a beautiful day, the first in a few weeks, which is the reason why I finally got out to shoot this video. Wildlife photography can be a lot of fun, but it also can be really challenging. So I usually tend to shoot a lot of event photography. I shoot a lot of people. It's rare that I go out to shoot wildlife, and I found myself being quite challenged. So I want to, tell you a little bit about that, but also give you some pointers for those of you starting out in wildlife photography. So first things first, as I said, the weather has been kind of not cooperating for the last few weeks. We had a couple nice days a few weeks ago, and then all of a sudden the weather kind of went into second winter, and it's been gloomy, it's been raining, we've had a little bit of snow. It's just not been good days to shoot. Today, the skies finally cleared up, the sun finally came out fully, and I decided to come out. So I've been tracking the weather consistently for about 3 weeks. So definitely do your homework, track the weather, make sure, you're not going to find yourself in the middle of a monsoon or, hail or anything that might impede your shoot, especially if you're going out far. As you can see, I'm at a local park, so I'm actually not very far from where I work. I'm only about 1,000 feet from the library, so I just walked over to this park, and this is where I had planned to do the shoot. Now, if I was planning to go out like on a hiking trail, or if I was planning to go out further, I would definitely track the weather a lot more consistently, because if you're going to be driving for long distances, the last thing you want to do is arrive and then all of a sudden it's hailing, it's storming, and the day is just done. So be mindful of that. Even like today, being as beautiful as it is, yesterday it had been raining all day, so the ground is still very, very wet. So be cognizant of that as well. If the weather is changing, and it's the previous day had been raining, be mindful of where you're going. There may still be a lot of mud. There may still be, uneven footing. There may still be areas that are flooded. So you want to make sure that you definitely take a look at your surroundings and your environment before you move forward. I wouldn't go on a hiking trail if it looks completely muddy, because you never know where you can slip and fall. So be very careful. The second thing, of course, is prep your gear. As I said, I'm very close to where I work, so even so, I still pack light. And if I'm going out to shoot further, I usually pack only the essentials. I will pack the lens that I've picked for that day. I don't end up packing like 5 different lenses. I pack extra batteries, of course, all the time. I always pack at least a couple garbage bags in case the weather does turn. Even though I'm tracking it, the weather could still shift on me. So if it starts to rain, the easiest thing I could do is drop my camera into a garbage bag, seal it up, and put it into my backpack or carrying case for my camera. Even with a carrying case, not all carrying, unless you're walking around with a watertight sealed case like a Pelican, even a backpack or a camera bag can let water in. So carrying around a garbage bag can save your camera. So definitely prep your gear, be ready to move out. Know the times that you're going to leave. So definitely have everything ready before you're going to leave. If you're going to be going out far, definitely pack some water, pack some, protein bars or something, because you never know how long you're going to be out there shooting. Shooting wildlife is a game in patience. So you definitely are going to be out at least a few hours. So from then on, I would say with wildlife, you definitely have to take a look at the type of wildlife you're going to be shooting. Now, here being that I stayed local, I knew I was going to be shooting birds. I was going to try to shoot some squirrels, and I was hoping to see some bunnies out. They do tend to start coming out this time of year, but I still don't see them probably because the weather has only just gotten nice today. So I did, definitely take a look at like the birds in my area and the squirrels. There's always squirrels running around, but I was going to focus mainly on birds. Birds are hard to shoot. Wildlife in general is hard to shoot because they are fast. No matter what animal you're trying to shoot, they are fast. At a moment's notice, they will get up, they will run, and they are gone while you're trying to set up your gear. So get out there. Look at your lighting conditions. Are you going to be shooting straight in the sun? Are you going to be shooting in like under a canopy of trees? How much light do you have to work with? You definitely want more light than, let's say, under a canopy of trees. It's really tough because when you're under a canopy of trees, because it blocks out quite a bit of sun. Last year I went out shooting on a hiking trail and it was tough. It got really dark in certain areas. That's why I chose a location that's very open. There's a lot of trees around the little lake that's here behind me, but in general, it's very open. And as you can see, the sun is very high today. Right now we are about 3:30 in the afternoon. So the sun is still fairly bright, fairly high overhead. So, definitely look at the lighting conditions and start setting your settings, because you're going to be shooting fast. And especially with like birds or wildlife, you definitely want a higher shutter speed because of how fast they move. And you also don't want a very shallow depth of field because, again, they move very fast. And with birds, you're going to be shooting in between trees and branches. Right now, as you can see, the trees behind me, they're still fairly bare. We're barely getting the first buds of spring, like all the smaller bushes around me are starting to turn green, but most of the bigger trees are still pretty bare. So trying to shoot birds on tree branches, especially like the little tiny thin ones, very tough because your lens is gonna hunt around. You can try to go manual, but honestly, trying to shoot wildlife manual is really tough because of how fast they move. So unless you've got years and years and years and years of practice with your manual focus, you're definitely going to be wanting to do autofocus. So be prepared to be struggling a little bit in certain areas with your lens. If you're shooting things that are on the ground that are fast, you're going to end up with a lot of blurry shots, and honestly, that's okay. Practice makes perfect. So keep shooting. I ended up probably with like 10 usable shots today, even though I probably shot about 1,000 shots. And that's because, one, I haven't been out shooting in a while, and so I feel like my hands are a little stiff. I haven't practiced in a bit. I've been shooting mostly people, so I haven't been in a situation where I've been having to like just jump from one end to another in terms of just moving my lens around, trying to hunt down a wildlife or a bird, or, in one case it was a squirrel. So definitely consider that. I would research like the times that your wildlife is active. Birds are generally active most of the day, but they are fairly active in the morning and in the evening. They start kind of settling down. So you definitely want to shoot more during the day than you do at night, unless you're going to be looking for nighttime birds. Feeding patterns, if you're shooting a specific type of wildlife, find out about their feeding patterns. Do they feed often? Do they feed only once or twice a week? Things like that do matter, because you may not get a chance every time you go out to shoot to find this animal. And then water sources. So the reason I chose this park is because there is a water source here, which means wildlife will congregate. Birds, there were ducks in the pond earlier. There's definitely some geese still running around, but all types of wildlife will congregate at water sources because that's what they need. And then shooting. So as I said, for my shooting, settings, I definitely went higher with the shutter speed just to make sure that I was going to be able to capture what I wanted. I definitely stayed at the higher end of my aperture, so I was shooting between f7, actually f8 and f11. I could have gone all the way up to f16, but you know, the sun was kind of peeking in and out of a few clouds a little while ago. They seem to have finally evaporated, but you know, depending on the type of light that you have going on for you, you may want to consider going down to something like f11 or f8 even. And then increase your ISO. Don't, shy away from increasing your ISO. I shot a lot of it at ISO 800. There's enough light to compensate so that I won't get digital noise. And then as the sun got a little more intense, as the clouds evaporated even more, I brought my ISO down to 400. So, you know, don't shy away from bringing your ISO up if you need to compensate for your aperture and your shutter speed. You're outdoors in bright daylight, so you're not going to get a ton of digital noise. And then lastly, don't get discouraged. It is really easy to get discouraged when you go out and you shoot and you only get 1 to 2 usable shots. Those 1 to 2 usable shots will teach you lots of lessons. And everything in between will also teach you a lesson in how the animals that you're trying to shoot behave, how they move, their patterns, and things like that. You begin to recognize how these birds move. Even in the small amount of time that I was out here, I realized that smaller birds move a lot more than the bigger birds. Like I was trying to shoot these small sparrows, very tough. They just keep hopping around from branch to branch. They're constantly flying in and out. The robins love to hop around on the ground. You are probably used to seeing them. You probably don't even realize that they're running around, but they love to run around on the ground. And then as we got to the bigger birds, they were settled down on the ground. Like the geese, they were settled for quite some time. I was actually about 20 feet away from them. And they were fairly okay. And the ducks as well. They were, the bigger the bird, the calmer it is, it seems. But, you know, there's rule breakers in any wildlife, so don't expect that they're all going to be that way, because a cheetah is super fast and it's a lot bigger. So don't get discouraged. Just keep shooting. Go out, enjoy your day, have a walk, and just shoot what you love. I want to introduce you to our newest lens at the Fountaindale Library collection for Studio 300, which is the Sigma, and it is a 150, double check. Yes, 150 to 600. So this guy is as extreme as telephoto as you can get without breaking the bank. It's a really good lens. I really like the glass. It's very fast and fairly accurate at focusing. I was very happy with its performance. It's a very sturdy build, but it is heavy. So it does come with this kind of like shoe adapter to mount to a tripod. So this lens actually mounts to the tripod. It kind of gives you a little bit of more balance, because if you put the camera on the tripod, then you're putting a lot of strain at that connection here. So whenever a lens has a shoe like this, definitely mount it to the tripod via the shoe, not via the camera. So some good things about this lens, again, you get in really close. It allows you to shoot further than you think. 2, it's got a lot of great little features. So it does have autofocus. It has some image stabilization, and it has a couple custom buttons that you can kind of play around with. This lens is now available for checkout. We currently only have it for the Nikon line. Just kind of testing to see how it's going to do, and if I see that, you know, it's getting a lot of recognition, then I'll probably end up buying it for the Canon line. This does require a credit card authorization to check out. It's about a $1,100 kit, so definitely goes over that credit card threshold of $750. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I will show you some shots throughout the video that I shot and a little bit right here at the end. And hopefully you get out this summer and shoot a lot of wildlife. And I hope you enjoyed Bird Week, and we will see you next time.